28 Years Later is now out in theaters, and we have waited 17 years for this film to come out. I'm a huge fan of this franchise. 28 Weeks Later is my favorite film, even after watching this one. I remember watching that in 2007. I was 11 years old, and that shit was terrifying. I definitely started me after watching that. I remember walking out of the theater just being like, just so scared, and just, it was so intense. And this is definitely, obviously, one of my most anticipated films of the year, without a doubt, of the summer. And I want to say that I love this movie, the anticipation that I had for it, how much I love the other ones. Danny Boyle returning to direct, Alex Garland writing the script. But I don't know if I feel that way. I did like this movie. It's awesome. The look of this film, the vibe, the tone, everything is there. The acting, Aaron Taylor Johnson in this film, I thought he was great. And this movie was shot on an iPhone. I don't know if you guys have seen, there's a couple of those pictures on Twitter that shows like a new camera rig that they did for this film, where there's like 15 or 10 to 15 iPhones surrounding this certain actor. And I was wondering, how that was going to look in this film for certain shots, when the infected die, or whenever, they shoot arrows at them and the camera just slightly shifts to the left or right in like a rapid fashion. And that's what that rig was used for. It was awesome. It was intense. It was great. And, all the films in this franchise have looked like that low quality, kind of low budget to kind of add to the intensity of these films, of the infected. Specifically the first one, just pretty much looking like it was shot on a camcorder or something. It might have been. And yeah, this movie is no different, but when you say that this movie is shot on an iPhone, especially with someone like Danny Boyle, someone, this, renowned, it's not like he's just holding the iPhone there, going around, or even just on like the little tiny Steadicam. He's got a whole rig for it with different lenses, a whole setup that basically looks like a film camera. But still, it looks great. And with this film being so different, so unexpected, subverting your expectations to pretty much the max. I mean, the 28 Weeks Later is one of the most intense movies I've ever seen. And this one has certain scenes, small little portions of that. There's a cool scene, with military guys in like this little lower alleyway kind of tunnel. And that scene was awesome. But it's the whole basically second half of this film, the third act, just caught me off guard, because we just focus on the kid in this film and the mother. And I was not expecting that at all. I thought, we were going to cut back to Aaron Taylor Johnson, see what he's doing. The first half of this film is, pretty much in the trailers. Aaron Taylor Johnson takes his kid, Spike, played by Alfie Williams, who he was awesome in this film. He takes him to the mainland because, 28 years later, UK, Britain is still quarantined. It's still completely shut off from the rest of the world. And so these, Jamie, our main characters, they live on this secluded island, I believe outside of Ireland. And there's one road in, one road out. It's not really a road. It's like a stone pathway in the ocean. And you can only cross it when it's low tide. So, there's a tradition on this, kind of secluded island where once you turn a certain age or whatever, you get taken to the mainland to see the infected, to, to basically just practice killing these things in case something happens. And that first half, it was awesome. They get to the land and they do something different as well in the aspect of how they've evolved the infected, how they decided to, change certain ways that these infected look, because obviously after 28 years, they are going to evolve. They're going to change. There's going to be different type of infected, much like The Last of Us or something like that. And we do get to see right away how they have evolved, how they have changed, really in two specific ways in this film. One of them just being like, okay, whatever. But then they introduced this new thing called the Alpha. And that was fucking sick. I really enjoyed that. I wish we got kind of more of that. I think we will probably in the next film. And when we do kind of focus on the alphas for a little bit and just kind of get to know, what their whole deal is, going back to that, tunnel scene with all the military soldiers, it was absolutely crazy. There's one scene specifically, what they do to these soldiers. It's kind of like tradition, for lack of a better word, for this tribe, essentially is what it is. What these alphas do to leave their mark, to let you know that they're there, it's fucking crazy. It's like Terrifier level gore, which also, we didn't get enough of that in this film. I wish we got a little bit more, but I know what they were trying to focus on. I know what they were trying to do. specifically with the second half. It pretty much just becomes a family drama in some sort of way. And when Ray Fiennes' character comes in, he was great. He was awesome. It's basically just, the what they say in the movie, memento mori, remember death. And so they're really just pushing that idea of, everybody dies. Every single living thing on earth is going to die, has to die. Otherwise, life wouldn't be what it is. It's a circle of life. And he really kind of exemplifies this by building a mural of skulls, or like a towering statue of skulls. And really just nothing kind of happens in the last half of this film. The pacing is a little bit off throughout this film too as well, because, we're first half is what I thought pretty much the whole movie was going to be. And then they completely change it up. They switch it up completely. And then we just cut to the military guys randomly getting chased by a bunch of infected. And it just kind of felt a little, like, I feel like we should have seen the military scene, a little bit earlier, because they just come out of nowhere. They all die except for one. And then, we kind of chill with him for a little bit. He joins Spike and his mom. And then after that is when it just dies. It just completely kind of falls flat in some sort of way. Not, once again, it's not bad, but it just feels flat. The only way to say it just loses traction. Ray Fiennes was great, though. He's great in everything he's in. But I was just sitting there wondering, when are we going to pan back or, go back to Aaron Taylor Johnson on the secluded island? Because obviously he's worried that his son and, his wife are gone. What's he up to? I wanted him in the movie more because he's great as well. And then the last scene just kind of just threw me for a loop. I had no idea what was going on. Not on the fact of, it's confusing or anything, but the style of this last scene, the song choice for it, this group of people that comes into the film just super randomly out of nowhere, and you're just sitting there like, what the fuck is going on? And that's another thing with this film. A lot of films nowadays too, when you want to make a new trilogy or just a part one, basically, this is essentially half of a movie, and you kind of have to know that going in, because it does leave off on a huge cliffhanger. They've already filmed the second movie. It's supposed to come out next year, I believe in January. So I guess I have to wait for that to, kind of completely know how I feel about this film. And, with the latest like Spider-Verse movie or, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, I didn't mind the cliffhanger that those left on. Granted, I wanted to watch it all, but those movies kind of satisfied me in a way that 28 years later just didn't really. I mean, I think if I watch it again, I think my feelings will change, but I really just can't help but feel just slightly disappointed just because of how much I love this franchise, how much I love this genre. And there's also one choice that they made in this film, or just one thing that they decided to include, add to the whole lore of this evolution of the infected, involving a pregnant woman. I was watching that scene and I was like, what the just once again, like, what is going on? It kind of made sense after it. You kind of start to think about it and you're like, whoa. And then it kind of becomes intriguing in some sort of way. And I hope, the thoughts that you have during that scene while you're watching the movie, after the film, thinking about it, I hope it pays off in the second film. I hope, kind of what I want to happen. I hope it does happen. I don't know if it will, but it's definitely intriguing. So overall, I mean, I did like this film. I did enjoy it. I just didn't love it like I thought I would. It subverted my expectations completely. Not necessarily a bad thing, because, there are still a lot of good scenes. This is half of a movie. There is some sort of intensity there, new ideas. The cinematography, the acting, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Alfie Williams as Spike. This little kid was awesome. Great actor, showing emotion when he needs to, being kind of a badass towards the end. Jodie Comer as Isla, Spike's mother in this film, also wonderful, as being this extremely sick human being who kind of starts having these spells every now and then. She's bedridden at first, but as they go on their journey, she starts to have these spells to where she, basically, it seems like she has Alzheimer's or something, where she forgets who she is, where she is. She mistakes Spike for being her father all the time. Everything in this film, the acting, the filming, the cinematography, it's all on point, as you expect from Danny Boyle, Alex Garland. It's amazing. It looks great. But there's just some choices that they made that they decided to do. I don't know if they're leaving it for the second film or for the third, because this is a planned trilogy. It just didn't necessarily work for me the way I wanted it to. But like I said, if I go watch it again, I might change my mind, just because I know what I'm going into now and I can kind of fully enjoy it without just questioning what the fuck are they doing. And at about the halfway point in this film, when a certain choice is made by Spike, I'm just like, what are you doing? This is not smart. It wasn't really smart to when Aaron Taylor Johnson brought his son to the mainland. Didn't seem like a good idea, trying to kill all these infected. You don't know what's going to happen. And then Spike makes a decision to go back without his dad. And I'm just like, dude, like, the last scene, you couldn't hit any of these infected in the head. You couldn't get any headshots or in the heart. You were missing like crazy. You were scared. You basically choked, which he's 12 years old. I mean, I'm not talking shit. It's understandable, but I don't know why they made that choice for him to do that when it's just almost impossible that he would be able to survive. But then again, Spike does kind of become a badass out of nowhere, which I didn't really mind. I really liked this actor. I really liked his character. Just at first, I was just like trying to wrap my head around how this would be possible, but it's a movie where people are infected with this rage virus. You know, it's a movie. So yeah, I mean, I do still think this is worth watching in theaters because I want to get the trilogy. I want to get all three of these films. I think the third one is definitely contingent on how these do at the box office. So if you like horror, if you like this franchise, this genre, just movies in general, I think you should definitely go watch this movie. Decide for yourself. For now, I'm going to give this movie a 7 out of 10. But as always, I appreciate you guys watching. Like, subscribe, comment. Tell me what's your favorite film in the franchise. Later.